I held the cake knife like a confession. That sentence hit the room before anything else. A small, absurd piece of metal heavy as truth. I can still feel its cool weight against my palm, the frosting smeared under my nails, the circle of faces blurring into the hush that followed. Sophia stood up slowly, as if she were walking onto a stage she'd always rehearsed for. She lifted the boy, little Leo, high like a trophy. "My son," she said, voice bright and brittle, "is not only mine. He's Marcus's." She clicked the folder shut like a judge slamming down a verdict. "And I want half the house." Her smile was the kind that expected applause. The laughter in the room dissolved into something small and afraid. Even the child paused, blinking as if he could feel a fissure opening under our feet. "You should know me. I'm Amara. I was 22 when I met Marcus, a man who smelled like cedar and certainty. He had hands that steadied storms and an easy laugh that made the world seem lined in gold. I loved him the way people love a sunrise. Unquestioning, habitually, with a small private awe. I married him because I want it forever stitched to my name. I married him because I believed the curve of his promises." Sophia was there from the start, always leaning in a little too close, wearing attention like perfume. She'd been reckless since childhood. A collector of glances, a hoarder of sympathy. I excused her the way we excuse relatives, because blood asks for patience. When small things started to rearrange themselves around us, Marcus's shirts carrying a stranger's scent, the sudden late nights that tasted of cigarette smoke, the closing of a phone like a shutter, I told myself stories. Love is gullible. Trust is a blindfold you tie yourself because you prefer the comfort of not knowing. The truth arrived in the dull blue glow of Marcus's phone. "Next time, don't leave the necklace," read the message. I remember the way the words looked, small and smug, like a match left on a table. The necklace. The one I'd glimpsed glinting at our mother's birthday, tucked in Sophia's collarbone like stolen moonlight. My chest cracked in that precise, clinical way broken things do. I did not cry. I did not scream. I smiled because I needed the smile to be a mask long enough to finish sewing my plans. Most people watch betrayal break them like glass. I learned to be a different kind of instrument. I became meticulous. Where others shouted, I calculated. Where others rushed, I waited. I let them think they had the map while I held the compass. I listened to voices I was supposed to trust and stored their words away like evidence. I sat in rooms with Marcus and smiled while counting the slights between his syllables. I braided my anger into patience and wore it like armor. There's a peculiar pleasure in being underestimated. Marcus trusted me. That was my first advantage. He always left documents where a woman with habits could find them. I found bank statements that smelled of offshore, contracts with signatures sleeping under careless pens. I learned the shape of his life, what he hid and what he told himself. I started visiting lawyers like a woman who wanted to understand not how to wound but how to hold on. And then I changed the script. Not with a scream but with paper. I put a new will where he would see it over breakfast, folded under a napkin like a casual thing. I kissed him and watched him sign without much attention, his mind occupied with trivialities. It sounds simple when I say it now, but it took a steadiness of nerve I hadn't known I had. I didn't rob him of the truth. I redirected the path his signature would follow. The will that mattered tied everything to me, not to Sophia, not to any careless child caught like a moth in a jar. It was clean, legal, cold as the marble steps where we later buried him. Marcus died in a way that people call sudden and ordinary, a heart that simply forgot how to beat. I dressed in black because that's what the world expected of a widow, and I moved through rites like a trained actor. In those days everyone praised how stoic I was. Strong, they said, patting the emptiness as if it were a thing to be admired. Sophia cried louder than me, her sobs a practice thing, her arms clutching Leo as if he were proof of devotion. She played the grieving sister with a zeal that should have been a clue to anyone paying attention. But grief, when tinted with appetite, looks different. Smells like hunger. It tastes of denial. 2 weeks after the funeral, she came for what she thought she'd been promised. She put a will on the table like an accusation and demanded half, a woman expecting to be handed the stage and the microphone. Her lawyer read the document with the air of a man who just glimpsed the bottom of a deep well. "This isn't the finalized will," he said, gently at first, then with the bright panic of someone watching a lie implode. "The paper Sophia brandished? A decoy. A draft. The notarized document, the one with ink brittle from witness signatures, had been locked and lodged where law locks things that will not be unmade. Her face changed the way paper turns in the rain. She accused me of forgery, of manipulation. I sat with my legs crossed and said the thing that would split her life in two. Be careful what you announce in public. People ask questions when faces match. I said it slow like a surgeon closing an incision. That was when the second blade slid in. I didn't have to shout the accusation. I let the room stitch itself into whispers. He looks so much like Marcus, I said conversationally. Don't you think? The seed was planted. Gossip watered it, and soon it sprouted into ruined neighbors who once shared sugar began passing notes instead. Invitations that were once generous dried up like puddles at noon. The friends who'd once laughed at Sophia's jokes looked at her the way you look at a picture with a watermark you can't remove. People speculated. People aligned their memories into a new shape and found they preferred the version that indicted her. Leo's photos became evidence in some imagined trial. She was stripped of dignity by 1,000 small polite cruelties. Her child, who had been a soft thing in my arms at family dinners, became the center of a scandal that ate her like rust. She came to my door months later at midnight, a small figure with mascara tracks and a voice that had lost its bravado. She begged, "Please, Amara. He's my son. Don't do this. Don't ruin us." I remember the way she held her hands, as if pleading could stitch up what she had unraveled. I remembered braids in our hair from childhood and whispered pacts we made under blanketed roofs. She was my sister once. Home was a word we used to share. That I stood on the other side of the door and saw the woman she had become, hollowed by appetite, frightened by consequence. I said, "You ruined yourself." My voice was small, not triumphant, not cold, just precise. Because at that moment, for all the theatrics and legalities and ruined parties, I understood what the truth had cost me too. Here is the part most people expect a story like this to end with. A mansion, a lawyer's handshake, a cold smile. They expect greed to be the currency of victory. But I am nothing if not complicated. In the nights after the lawsuits and the quieted invitations, I found myself watching Leo sleep. He kicked in dreams like any child. His tiny hand curled into a fist like he was holding something precious. I would sit in the kitchen, a mug cooling in my hands, and feel the shape of what I had done. So here's the final, small thing that caught everyone by surprise. I signed the papers to keep the house. I also signed the papers to grant her son a portion of it. A separate deed. A trust with a name I chose because I couldn't bear to let a child be the piece on which we played out our war. People said I was cruel. People said I was merciful. They were both right. I had wanted to watch the world take her apart because she had torn me open. But when the pieces lay on the floor, I couldn't step over a child's future. Revenge carved a neat line through my life, but it did not heal the jagged place inside me where love had once lived. I had won and I had lost. Marcus was gone. Sophia was broken. I had the house and the signatures and a quiet every evening that felt more like the hush after a storm than a sanctuary. Sometimes when I passed the hallway where Marcus once kept his shoes, I touched the place where a photograph used to hang and feel the hollow behind my ribs that no legal document can fill. If there is a lesson here, it isn't about cleverness or victory. It's about what we do when we discover the people we trust are not who we thought. It's about how the instruments of law and the instruments of revenge can both be used to save and to destroy. It's about the child who slept through our vengeances and the sister whose hands I used to braid and unbraid until there was nothing left. So I tell you this not for sympathy and not for praise. I tell you because secrets are small detonations. They reshape the rooms of our lives. Tell me, what would you have done in my place? Would you have let it burn or would you have built something new from the ashes? Leave your thoughts below. Talk to me. I need to know if I was the cleverest person in the room, or simply the loneliest.